Okay, so we've been talking about limits for 2 days now, and today we're going to talk about something called end behavior. Now, you actually talked about end behavior in Algebra 2, but you didn't talk about it in terms of limits, okay? But the definition of end behavior is just how a graph behaves for very large or very small values of x. Okay, so that's what's happening. We want to know what is the graph doing when x is really big, like when x is 1,000,000 or 2,000,000, when it's approaching infinity, or very small, when x is negative 1,000,000 or 2,000,000 or approaching negative infinity. So usually when we look at graphs, we're only looking at between negative 10 to 10. But what's happening to the graph beyond that? Way, way, way to the right or way, way, way to the left. And in Algebra 2, the way you talked about end behavior was, I believe, depending on your Algebra 2 teacher, you just did arrows. Like to the left and the right, maybe the graph looked like that. Or maybe it went down and up and looked like that. Or maybe it was the opposite way. Or maybe they were both down. I believe that that's how you talked about end behavior, and we did that basically with polynomials. Now we're going to look at all different types of graphs and see what they're doing at the very end, but we're going to write them as limits. So when you think of end behavior, you want to think of two limits. The limit as x approaches infinity and the limit as x approaches negative infinity. So this one's going to be to the right for very large values of x, and this one will be looking to the left for very small values for x. So if I look at this absolute value graph, this v, we know that the function is absolute value of x, okay? I want to look at my two end behavior limits. So as x approaches infinity, and the limit as x approaches negative infinity. So this first one is going to the right. So I'm going to think, if I keep going forever and ever and ever, if I keep going, where's my y values going? What is my y value doing? Well, this y value is going to keep going up and up and up and up and up. So by the time it gets over here, it's going to be way up above my board. Way, way, way up. So we can say the limit as x approaches infinity is going to be infinity. It is going up. Oops. I don't want to erase that, do I? Okay, so as my graph goes to the right, my y values are going up. Now, as my graph, this one is to the left. So as my graph is going to the left, again, way, way, way to the left, what's this doing? Well, that's also going up to positive infinity. So both of these end behaviors are going to be positive infinity because they're both going up. For my next one here, again, we're talking about end behavior, so I'm still dealing with the two limits, infinity and negative infinity. Now, this one seems to have a horizontal asymptote going both ways. The graph seems to be going towards this x value. So even if I were to go way over here to the right, this graph is going to get closer and closer to 0. Same thing to the left. This one's going to the left. It still looks like it's going to be getting closer and closer to 0. Now, the end behavior does not have to be the same. Just because they're the same in these first two absolutely does not mean that. So, if I look at this last one, my two end behavior limits, to the right, this looks like it's tapering off here at 3. So my limit to the right, my graph is going to stay at 3. However, to the left, I see that my graph is pointing down. It's going towards negative infinity. I would say that most of the time, over 90%, your end behaviors are going to be infinities. Most graphs are either going towards positive infinity or negative infinity. The only time that doesn't happen is when you have a horizontal asymptote. Here I had a horizontal asymptote at 0, and this one had a horizontal asymptote at 3. If there's no horizontal asymptote, then it's probably going to go to infinity or negative infinity. So most of the time when you're giving end behaviors, it's going to be the infinities. Okay, so on the back here, we have 6 graphs. Okay, so why don't you try these 3? And again, you are just finding the limit as x approaches positive infinity, that's to the right, and the limit as x approaches negative infinity, that one's to the left. Okay, so again, to the left and to the right, what does it look like my y values are doing? So pause the video, try all 3 of these, and then you can restart the video and see how you did. Okay, so here are your answers. The first one's just a line. So as the graph's going to the right, it's going towards negative infinity. As the graph goes to the left, it goes towards positive infinity. My second one looks kind of like an exponential graph. As it goes to the right, it's going to positive infinity, and to the left is 0. And then the last one there, just your basic parabola, they're both going towards positive infinity. Okay, now, before you do these last 3, okay, remember, it doesn't matter what's happening in the middle. Okay, it doesn't matter what's happening at the y-axis. I only care the very ends. So remember, way to the left or way to the right. So again, for all 3 of these, you're finding these 2 limits for end behavior. To positive infinity and negative infinity, to the very right and to the very left. So go ahead and try those 3. Okay, here they are. So for the first one, again, I don't care at all what's happening here in the middle. Okay, as I go to the very right, this graph is going down towards negative infinity, and as it goes to the left, it's going towards 0. For my middle one here, again, I don't care that there's a jump discontinuity there. I'm not asking the limit as x approaches negative 1. Towards infinity, it's going to be negative 6, and towards negative infinity, it's going to be up, which is positive infinity. And for my last one, okay, going to the right, it's going down to negative infinity, and to the left, it's going up to positive infinity. So just remember, when you see these limits towards infinity or towards negative infinity, you're going to the very right or the very left. What's happening to the graph as it leaves? Now, your homework is in the book, and there's a bunch of directions there with all kind of stuff. Don't worry about any of the directions. All I want you to do is find the 2 limits. And when I talk about the 2 limits, I mean the 2 that we've been finding, positive infinity and negative infinity. Just those 2 limits for all of those graphs. Okay, you don't have to do anything else that the book says, so just those. Okay, the answers to that homework are on the classroom, so you can check yourself as you go. And if you have any questions, you can ask me when I come back next week. I will be in class on Tuesday, so I will see you then. I can answer any questions that you might have. Okay?